till you calm me down. Good evening, ladies. Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the I Talk Back Sports Show. I'm joined by my meddling co-host, Jamal Bunner.
Good evening and afternoon as well. And why do I have to be meddling?
Uh, just because. Okay, so today we're going to talk briefly about the NBA season, which is the regular season is now over. We're going to discuss briefly the playoff first round. And also a little bit about the draft, some of our wishes, our hopes, our dreams, and all the things that we probably won't get. Right, Jamal?
None of which we will get. That is correct.
Alrighty, so Jamal, would you like to give a shout out?
I would love to give a shout out to the NBA for putting on an entertaining season, one of the more entertaining ones in a little while, as far as I'm concerned. That the regular season games were of interest going throughout, and I appreciate the breaks and the lack of constant sitting down of players and so forth for weird injuries and that sort of thing. What about you, Kay?
If we're going to go ahead and stick with the NBA, I'm going to thank them for a very lackluster regular season as far as performances. I think the most intriguing things were probably the trades, but everything else was eh.
Yeah. Okay, sorry you feel that way.
Yes, so there you go. So, Jamal, let's go ahead and get into this, okay? So, the draft is in about 2 weeks. What is on your draft list for your NFL team?
On my draft list, honestly, actually, it depends on what happens tomorrow. And the discussion, I believe we will talk about a little bit later. I will say that I would love to see for us get a playmaker on defense and also a couple of playmakers on offense, not necessarily in the wide receiver category, but just in general, some people who can be counted on to act as, let's say, X factors in some of the games that we have, and who can really make a difference. Beyond that, I think we're stocked up on offensive linemen. We've picked up a couple of defensive ends, and that we have a great punter, great kicker. I don't know. I think other than a tight end, I think that's pretty much all that I had in mind for my wish list. What about you?
I would like 2 linebackers, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I want a edge rusher. Love that, okay? Two edge rushers. I would like a head coach.
Wait, what?
Manager.
We can't get that in the draft.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think a couple of players on the defense, definitely.
Okay. We did make some free agency signings in the last few weeks. Not anyone that really will turn any heads, but especially on the defensive end side, and it seems to be some sort of hope that Randy Gregory may actually be okay. So anyway, moving along, I am really looking forward to the continuation of the NBA season that we talked about a few moments ago in terms of it's now reached into the playoff season. And wanted to get your take on it overall very quickly, starting with the Eastern Conference. How do things look for you?
Oh, wow. The Eastern Conference is wide open, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Like before LeBron went back to the Cavs, like wide open like that to me. Because
Yeah.
I think they're right in that same position a couple of years later. So I'm thinking that Toronto will be strong.
You all right?
And I don't know if the Cavs, I don't know what they're going to do because they kind of remind me of the Lakers, like towards the end of Kobe's career, where they kind of sailed in the regular season and then in the playoffs they put it on, But I don't know if the Cavs are equipped to do that, so I really don't know.
I'm in agreement with you. I'm looking at the way that this is stacking up. First of all, I'm trying to make sure, I'm hoping that no more Cavs appear on, TMZ or wherever before these playoffs start, talking about they've been cheating with an Instagram model. The way this is lined up, though, just looking it over in the Eastern Conference, the Cavs will probably make short work of the Pacers, but then their next opponent would be probably the Toronto Raptors. And I'm not sure if the Raptors really are ready yet. They're one of the youngest teams in the NBA, although they're the number one seed. But, I'm not sure. And on the other side, Boston won all of those games pre-Kyrie Irving injury. So they are the number 2 seed, looking really, really vulnerable against Milwaukee for starters. And then you have this other intriguing matchup with Philadelphia and the Miami Heat. Philadelphia, from a talent standpoint, should take it, but they don't have the veteran leadership. The East is kind of exactly what you said. It's fairly wide open, and there are a lot of reasons not to like a number of the teams coming from the East. I will go on record as saying I see...
Hold on, let me type this in. On record.
Oh, you're cold. I see Cleveland still managing to make it out of there. I don't have any faith in Toronto. In the bottom half of the conference, they don't stack up against Cleveland when everything is said and done, especially over a 7-game series.
We'll see.
What you got?
On the East, oh my God, it's hard to pick against Cleveland, but I just don't know. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. From what I see, they don't really play well together. I think they're still working through some things, and if they're able to figure it out in the playoffs, I mean, that's great. I mean, LeBron James looks good now. Let's not say that.
Right. That's true.
He looks great. So
he does.
Yeah. So we'll see.
So we'll move to the West, where it gets a little more interesting. It's a little dicier. I will go ahead and start with what are your thoughts looking across the Western Conference?
The Warriors have some injuries, but I'm going to still go with them. Only because in the past, the Rockets have not done well in later rounds of the playoffs. I don't know if it's their conditioning. They rely very heavily on the three-pointer. What happens if that just isn't working for them? They're in a slump. So those are the type of things that kind of worry me about the Rockets making it to the actual finals. So I'm going to go Golden State, Jamal.
I, too, looking over everything, I think that the Portland-New Orleans series is going to be entertaining. The Oklahoma-Utah Jazz, I actually think the Jazz are going to win that one, sadly. But...
Okay.
Sorry.
So very not entertaining. Go ahead.
They're not really that entertaining. But of interest to me, honestly, is that 2-7 Golden State versus San Antonio. And I know that San Antonio isn't at full speed, but Golden State's also coming in as a semi-healthy team. Steph Curry isn't going to come back into the second round, and they're going to need to do a little bit more than just kind of go out and say, we're Golden State. They're going to have to actually play that series. And then they face a tough opponent in the winner of the New Orleans-Portland series. No one's got an answer for Anthony Davis at all.
No, they're not. I don't think it's that tough.
Yeah.
Portland is so middle of the road, and they've been that way for 10 years. So.
Yeah. And let me throw this out there. I can see Utah beating Houston in the semifinals. Because like you said, as Houston goes deeper into the playoffs, they just, and Utah really does seem to be a very strong, blue-collar team. I still have Golden State coming out of this as the representative from the West, but it's not going to be easy. And this should be a very entertaining playoffs, or at least I expect it to be.
I expect it to get entertaining as the rounds move closer to the finals.
Right, and we'll come back and hit the finals once that comes up. And in the interim, let's talk about tomorrow, if we may. There's supposed to be a meeting between the owner, Jerry Jones, and Des Bryant. And by all rumored accounts, this is going to be a courtesy take the pay cut or your cut discussion. Um, Barbie, I have feelings on this. I'll let you talk about it first. What are your thoughts?
I have feelings on this as well. Okay. Um, okay, so you knew who the guy was when you drafted him. You knew what he did well, and you knew what he lacked. To say 8 years later that he needs to work on this or he doesn't do this well, you knew that in 2010. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And all along that time, I'm sure you're evaluating this guy, you're giving him feedback. You had plenty of time to tell him, hey, well, you shouldn't have to tell him, but
Mm-hmm.
you could have just said, hey, you need to work on your route running, whatever. So that's that. You know what you got when you got him. You paid him anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You paid him twice.
Right.
Okay. I think that Dez, and I thought that Dez should have been open to the pay cut the first time that they asked him about it, because it's not about you, it's about what's good for the team. Since you haven't been playing so well the last 3 years, to be honest, since you got the extension, I think that if he really wants to play for the Cowboys, he will take the pay cut. And there's nothing wrong with taking a cut and getting out there and then doing your best and showing everyone what you're made of. I mean, we have to prove ourselves every day. I have to prove myself every day at work. I have to clock in on time and do my job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just because I did good yesterday, that don't count for tomorrow. Okay, so that's just the nature of the beast. I don't think that he should. I don't think he should be cut. I think he should just take the pay cut and fall in line. I don't think there's any better options out there. You don't want your second-year quarterback throwing to a rookie receiver. You don't want that when your quarterback is kind of struggling with doing other things besides throwing the ball for 10 yards. That's what I think.
Okay, all right. I mirror a lot of what you just mentioned, and at the same time, I think that the Cowboys actually kind of painted him into a bit of a corner, that they held on to Dez up until the point of they made sure they had all the leverage. Kind of one of those things that you pointed out that, who can Dez go to? They really should have had this conversation before the beginning of free agency, and they didn't. So now it's Dez can't go out on the free market and just, find out what he's truly worth. It's either you take this or boom. And honestly, what they really should do is just renegotiate this to a 1-year deal, load it up with incentives, and then say at the end of the year, you're a free agent. That's honestly what they should do. But Jerry's not the money man anymore, so all he is more like,
the mediator.
The mediator, de facto GM, and then it goes forth from there. So we'll see what happens, but this is it's depressing.
A sad day, Jamal.
Yeah,
sad day.
It's a very sad day.
Friday the 13th. I wanted to end in my favor, Jamal, only because I love Dez, and only because I got 3 jerseys with his number and his name.
He's a warrior. He's been a warrior. He's been a very good representative for the number 88, and that it is something that I think that really needs to be taken into account. This man has played the last 3 years through injuries, and he hasn't complained about it. He hasn't made excuses. It wasn't until the end of the season that, hey, I dropped those passes. I had this hurt finger and the tendonitis. That was 2016. Last year, he had tendonitis, ankle issue. So, he works through what he works through. We've got a new wide receivers coach. I would love to see him working with this guy because he did very well with the receivers in Indianapolis. And I would love to see how he works finally with a very good number 2 in Allen Hurns. That's something he hasn't had in a while. So I hope that this comes out in our favor, which you and I hope is, Dez stays. But otherwise, that's another, So going on very quickly, how are your Rangers doing?
They're not doing. And one of our players kind of got injured, his elbow yesterday. It doesn't look good. Coming into the season, we knew we needed pitching.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The bullpen was okay. The closer's okay. But we need some aces in here. You know? So you already know what the problem is. Your offense kind of sucked last year, so you knew you need some bats. So you get what I mean. I guess they're taking the Dallas Cowboy approach to things, and I don't ever think that ever works.
It
So
doesn't work. No, no. Um, my
your man,
Mets are doing extremely well. It's early though, early days. So I'm just going to say I'm cautiously optimistic, but we're doing far better than anyone expected us to do. We'll come back and revisit it. Quick question for you. Would it be horrific for Major League Baseball to start in late April as opposed to late March so that the weather doesn't suck so bad? This is in response to a number of the northern teams, like the Yankees home opener snowed out. The Chicago Cubs home opener earlier this week
right,
snowed out. So
right, and Baltimore is selling their tickets for $0. Does
yeah,
that have something to do with it?
yeah,
I think you should keep things the same, even with the elements, because if you push it further into past October, you're going to still have the same thing in November. So either you shorten the season. I mean, you can
yes,
possibly do that.
yes,
That wouldn't hurt anyone, I'm sure.
right. That's exactly
That,
my thought. Yes, shorten the
but
season.
you also should wait until December to start NBA basketball if you're going to do that.
I cannot argue that point. That's a very good point. I like that idea. I like that.
We've tossed this idea around a lot. I mean,
Yes,
why
yes.
not?
Yeah, it
You
should
got the
start
whole world watching at that time. There's no college football in December at the beginning. So why not?
and pro football is winding down at that point. So yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
exactly. Want to switch gears with you for a moment, if I may. What are your thoughts on the happenings with Facebook and Facebook data? I know you to be a very heavy Facebook user. How do you feel about the possibility of data being sold off to someplace else?
Well, I don't necessarily want it to be sold off. I don't want anybody to be able to retrieve anything that I say. However, I don't think people are really up in arms about it because you've had Target, you've had Walmart, you've had so many other stores to have data breaches as well. You know what I'm saying? So it's just not Facebook. And I think my credit card information is probably more important than what I told Jane back in 2008. So I don't know.
hmm
It's just every other day you're hearing about something being breached. So I don't know how big of a deal you can really make of that.
Understood. I'm a little disappointed in them, but we can go further into that in detail on another time. Do we need another Oprah on daytime TV?
No,
Really?
I think that television is really it's changing. You know what I'm saying? With Netflix really like just being the heavyweight of television right now. They have a lot of good stuff going on. I don't think people really watch a whole lot of TV unless it's having to do with sports or Fox News. I just don't think that a lot of people are watching TV as they used to. We don't really need nobody to tell us how to cry and how to. We don't need all of that. We're moving on from the sensitive era, and we're just somewhere totally different. But I
Okay.
can see from your facial expressions, you think we do need this in our lives.
I think that there still needs to be that conversation in the afternoon with someone who is doing more, and I mean no offense to Ellen DeGeneres because she is a very entertaining talk show host, but I think that social aspect of what Oprah brought is something that's missing. There's some conversations that no longer are taking place. And they've moved to social media. You're absolutely right. It's no longer necessarily on television. But would it help to actually have that back on television? Really? Really?
Not for me, it wouldn't.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Okay.
Unless they can find a way to really integrate social media or outside people's really their thoughts and feelings, because this is what we're all about nowadays. I don't really see the use of one person dictating how everyone should feel about something.
Okay. All right. All right. And along the same vein, do we need another quote unquote Arsenio Hall on late night in terms?
Yes.
Okay. Shoot. Go.
And the reason why is because, well, the thing about it is I love Arsenio only because he was able at the time to bring on people that I like to see, like people that I cared about,
Mm-hmm.
to the forefront. With social media, you can just go and see what somebody is buying at the store at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the only, I think, really bad thing. I think talk shows, period, are kind of just they're kind of just becoming obsolete.
One of the things that I will say is very quickly, the thing that Arsenio brought was the just people that I hadn't heard of, and even through social media now, there are still artists, there's still speakers, there's still any number of entertainers that really need a bigger and better platform, and that Arsenio brought it, and a lady of color doing a talk show in the evening would really be something that would be a boost to the talk show game.
But to say that a woman of color, you would have to make sure she's toting the right agenda. I mean, if she's just walking along the popular line, it's not going to do us any service.
This is true.
So it definitely would have to be someone who is true to themselves and the message that they want to portray to the world.
I couldn't agree more. Really quick in closing, Cardi B on the Tonight Show. How was that?
I really enjoyed her. We talked about this a little bit, and I mean, she's our Fran Drescher. She's our Sofia Vergara. You know what I'm saying? She has a lot of personality. And so why not? Her and Jimmy Kimmel, I think he was more concerned with her saying something like really off the wall, and I can see that he was a little bit uncomfortable with having someone beside him, but I think it's a great opportunity for her to get out and to talk to other people from other sides of things. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, it's what it's all about. Once you see a middle-aged 50-year-old man talking about something Cardi B related, that's everything. So,
all I can say is for all the things that people said about it, it's that Cardi B was no different than, let's say, Justin Timberlake when he's co-hosted the show with Jimmy Fallon. So that being said, let me go ahead and wrap this up. Kay, it's been a pleasure. We will catch up a little bit later. Thanks for taking the time.
good show, Jamal.
Thank you. Bye, Kay.